Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Robin, and you're listening to Bowel Moments,
the podcast sharing real talk about the realities of IBD. Served on the rocks. This week we talked to Myisha Malone-King. Myisha is the brains and moderator behind the Facebook group Game of Crohn's and Chronic Illness. We talked to her about moderating this group and the discussions that she has with the group. We talked to her about grief and coping with grief associated with chronic illness. We talked to her about pain and finding a doctor that will believe your pain and managing your pain. We talked to her about family planning, including considering abortion. And we talked to her about her poetry and her upcoming book of poetry called Footprints of the Soul. Just a warning that we do discuss abortion in this episode, so it may not be appropriate for all audiences. Cheers!
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bowel Moments. This is Robin.
Hey, guys. This is Alicia, and we are super excited to be joined by Myisha Malone-King. Myisha, welcome to the show. We are excited to hear your story.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I've been excited about this all last week.
We have been excited to have you too, because we did have to reschedule. So we've been like on pins and needles waiting, but we're going to ask you all about your IBD story in just a second. But very first, unprofessional question for you is, what are you drinking?
Nothing.
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 Oh, no.
I haven't drunk anything since about maybe, I want to say five-ish.
I think we need to let you go so you can go get some water.
I know, you need to hydrate.
Because I had electrolytes in my water. I had Arizona and I had put some electrolytes in it. So I'm not really thirsty at the moment because I was sipping on it for a little second. So I just finished it about 5 minutes.
All right. Okay, that's
Got
good.
it.
Robin, what about you? What are you drinking?
I am back at it with this lime LaCroix. LaCroix. Have you guys seen this true lime? These little...
Yes, I have some. They sent me some in the mail and they sent me so many of them. I love them.
Yes.
Nice.
So I started adding this little dehydrated lime to my lime LaCroix. Chef's kiss. It's perfect. Love it. I highly recommend. Not sponsored by.
Shit, dang it, but we'll take you.
Yeah.
Nice.
What are you drinking, Alicia?
Well, I am drinking water as well, but I also have a Topo Chico seltzer in my little can thing here.
Nice.
It's lemon lime. Okay, Myisha. So next question for you is, tell us your IBD story. What brought you into our community?
Well, let me take you back. I was born in the fall of 1980. The doctors told my parents that I wasn't going to make it to live past 6 months. I was born with my heart outside my chest on an incubator, and I was 1 pound and 1 ounce, world's smallest baby. Fast forward 29, I'm having abdominal pain. I'm noticing blood in my stool, mucus. I notice I'm losing weight and having loss of appetite. I'm bringing it up to my doctors constantly. I'm getting brushed off. I'm getting called a hypochondriac. I'm getting told that it's all in my head. So I start doing some research of people with blood in their stool. And I came across the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and I came across a girl named Sarah Ringer, her and Amber Trusta, who are big time advocates in the IBD community. And, I came across them and I started listening to that story. And I'm like, they sound like symptoms I'm having, I can so relate to them. And, then I tell my doctor, if you won't give me a referral or what I need, I will go over top of your head and get what I need, because I learned from these advocates that I need to self-advocate. So I'm self-advocating. Something isn't right with my stomach. So I finally get my doctor to give me a referral to see a gastrointestinal doctor, which I wasn't familiar with. So once they do the colonoscopy, they first diagnosed me with ulcerative proctitis, but that was a misdiagnosis. They misdiagnosed me twice. Then I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, but the way that my ulcerations and inflammation was showing up wasn't conclusive with ulcerative proctitis or colitis. I didn't officially get a Crohn's disease diagnosis until 2016. But in 2009, I almost lost my life from a perforated bowel, 3 inches of my bowel. I was in the process of giving birth to my now 14-year-old son, Khalil. And I started hemorrhaging. They had to put an electrode on my son's head to monitor him. But because I wasn't showing distress and he wasn't showing distress, they wasn't trying to act fast, I was still hemorrhaging. My blood pressure was dropping. My husband was telling me, you gotta be calm. We're gonna make it through this. They had all, they were like, well, we gotta hurry up and deliver your son at 37 weeks because we need to rush you into emergency surgery because 3 inches of your bowel is starting to perforate. It's gonna kill you. And I'm like, I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to react because right after that, like 5 hours later, we were delivering my son and rushing me into surgery. So they removed 3.5 inches of my bowel that was perforated. And, they connected everything back, sewed and stapled me back up. I was in the hospital for almost a month. Within that time, I had got an infection, 3.5 blood transfusions, 2 iron transfusions. And they came and told me, if you ever try to get pregnant again, it's going to kill you. I got pregnant again. I didn't know I was pregnant. I was 21 weeks and I got sick and went to the hospital. They were like, you're pregnant. And me and my husband were like, we're just going to deal with it. I don't believe in abortions, but we were like, it's my life or, the kid life, we got kids. So we went to go have an abortion. And my now about to be 12-year-old was like, no, he kicked it out. And me and my husband was like, maybe we're just going to have the baby and we're just going to go with the flow. Whatever happens, happens. We prayed on it. He's here. Almost died for the 3rd time. And when I was diagnosed, my gastroenterologist basically said, you have Crohn's disease, this is what you have. And that was it. He didn't explain anything to me, didn't give me any pamphlets. It was basically me to the wind by myself. So I went and searched for more advocates. And I went and did research as much as I could online. And I was coming across this whole community of people that were just like me, that had a condition that was rarely talked about. Nobody rarely talks about their pooping habits or the fact that they poop. Everybody poops. Everybody has a bowel movement. But most people aren't comfortable talking about it. Me, I was not comfortable talking about it. I didn't want people to know that I was having problems when I went to the bathroom. These other advocates was letting me know it's okay to share your story, It's okay that you have this condition because, you're not the only person. There's 1.3 million people that's just like you. And so my very first time sharing my story was on a podcast. And I felt so overwhelmed and so relieved that I could share my story and that if my story reached one ear or if my story helped one person feel less alone, to know that they weren't alone and that it was somebody out there struggling with those symptoms just like them, then I felt as though I did my job. So I started the Facebook group, Game of Crohn's and Chronic Illness. One of my best friends who is no longer with us anymore, she came up with the name for me. And I created the group, and then I decided that I wanted to do what those advocates I look up to do. I wanted to be an advocate. I wanted to get out there and help other people and share my story. And here we are.
So how big is your community? What year was that when you started?
I started my group in 2016.
Okay.
The year that I officially got my Crohn's. I actually got my official Crohn's diagnosis August the 16th of 2016 is when I started my group. We had over 300 members, but we weeded that out because a lot of them were spam pages and bots. So we deleted a lot of those. So we're down to 168 members.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. There are some similarities in our story. I was originally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2000, and my diagnosis changed to Crohn's in 2018, officially in 2018. I had to have emergency surgery to have my colon removed. Yeah, it is. It is not for the faint of heart.
It's hard, but being a parent with a chronic illness is even harder.
Yes. My girls, Logan and Bailey, have been on the show. Logan just turned 26 in July and Bailey turned 24 in April, and they've been on the show. Bailey turned 1 when I was in the hospital for the first time having emergency surgery. Like, she took her first steps. Like, this is her claim to fame for me. She took her very first steps in the family visiting room at Troy Beaumont Hospital.
I've spent birthdays in hospitals, so just being able to spend a birthday out of the hospital with my kid is everything, because I know what that feels like, to be in a hospital and sick and just, feel like you're helpless. But my kids always been understanding. They've always been understanding. Like, Like yesterday and today, I've been in excruciating pain, and I noticed my bathroom trips were increasing. But they've been so understanding. My husband is so understanding. Like it blows me away because everybody isn't fortunate enough to have that.
I'm just curious, how old were your middle children when you were first diagnosed and you were pregnant with your third?
Let's see. I was 29 when I got diagnosed, and I'll be 43 next month. So
Okay.
she was 5 and Autumn was 6.
Oh gosh. Okay. So they were real little. Wow.
And I didn't get diagnosed until 2009, the year that I had my son, Khalil.
Okay. It is wild to think that you had the perforation while you were pregnant. That is.
And I was going to my prenatal care. I was getting the scans. Nothing, never caught it. Never caught it. Until the day I went to my last appointment, the day I went to my last obstetrician appointment, my doctor stripped my membranes, which is when they insert their fingers and strip the membranes around your cervix so that you can go into labor. They did that because I kept developing fluid. But the day that she did that, I want to say about 4 or 5 hours later, I started hemorrhaging. They thought that I had preeclampsia, and I didn't. I didn't have preeclampsia. So they were trying to figure out every time I stood up, the blood was just gushing out like water, just gushing out. And they thought that, they wanted to know what it was. They didn't find out that my colon was perforated until they did an internal sonogram.
Oh gosh. Did they know why you perforated? I mean, I guess they're like,
nope. Mind you, I wasn't having any pain outside of the regular pain that I have, with being pregnant.
Yeah. But like you said, that's the crazy thing about this. People can be asymptomatic and be completely inflamed, and people can be in such pain and their inflammation can be slight. So it's just crazy how it affects everybody differently.
With my baby boy, Caden, once I found out I was pregnant, I went into complete remission. My symptoms didn't start back up until a year after he was born.
That can happen. And there's other autoimmune conditions too, where there's something about pregnancy that kind of is almost a protective. I think it's maybe because babies are like foreign invaders in your body, like your immune system is sort of already backed off a little bit so that it doesn't hurt your pregnancy. So there's some speculation that like some of these hormones are helpful for some of our folks. And that's why some people go into remission during their pregnancy. But a lot of them, it's like it kind of comes back right after they give birth.
And mine came back about a year after.
Yeah, that's interesting. So can we talk a little bit about parenting? So you were going through all of this. They didn't really know what it was. You didn't get your confirmed diagnosis for a while. Talk a little bit about parenting little kids during that time when you were symptomatic and you didn't really know what was going on, and people maybe were not listening to you. You weren't getting what you needed to get to that right diagnosis.
Well, see, at the time, my fiance, now my husband, he was always supportive. So the weight of having a 5 and 6 year old wasn't as heavy as it probably would have been if I was by myself. But just trying to manage, because my husband, certain things that deal with our daughter, he preferred me to do. So when it came to doctor appointments and stuff like that, depending on what what they were going to the doctor for, he would prefer me to go. So trying to manage my appointments and their appointments, and I would always try to get them within the same time, was kind of hard, especially with them being in school and parent-teacher night and conferences, and just the overall concept of parenting while being chronically ill, because I missed a lot of important things like games and back to school nights and parent-teacher conferences and just overall plays, things that I wanted to participate in because I couldn't, because I would be balled up in the bed in pain under a heating pad, taking pain medicine because I wasn't well enough to participate. I wasn't well enough to go cheer my kid on. I had to cheer them on from a distance on FaceTime because I was in too much pain. Mommy was physically in too much pain. And they always understood. But to me, being a parent, certain moments you just don't want to miss. Certain moments you want to be there for, to cheer them on, to let you know that they have your undying support. But I couldn't offer that at those times.
That must be a really difficult thing. And your kids are old enough too that they understood what was going on. 5 and 6, you're very observant, smart little kids usually. And so it's not like you can be like not telling them what's happening. They know at that point. They're very cognizant.
They would just come and lay in the bed with me, watch movies with me, watch TV with me.
That's so sweet. I love that. Do you mind? We haven't gone down this path. Can we talk a little bit about your decision to have an abortion, or your decision to go towards an abortion. That must have been an incredibly difficult decision, especially when it sort of goes against what you normally would believe.
We already knew we wasn't trying to get pregnant. I didn't even have any symptoms that I was pregnant.
That's so crazy.
No nausea, no vomiting, no nothing. My stomach wasn't even growing. I tell you, my stomach didn't get big until after they told me I was pregnant. I was still taking my pain medicine. I was still taking my regular medicine. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. But the doctors had already told me and my husband that if I got pregnant again, it was going to kill me. So we wasn't intending on having another kid.
No.
So when I just was feeling weird one day, so I went and got a cheap pregnancy test from the Family Dollar store, and it said I was pregnant. So I made an appointment with my doctors, and they confirmed I was pregnant. And I came home and I was like, "Baby, I'm pregnant." And he was like, "So what you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I don't believe in abortion, but we got kids. We got 3 little ones, and they said, it would kill me." And he was like, "Well, I was like, well, we can go see what they say at the abortion clinic." We went the day came of the appointment. We went to the appointment. Before they even consider doing the abortion, they have steps that they do. They see how far along you are. They do blood tests, urine tests, things like that. It's a little process. It takes a few hours. They went to go do an internal sonogram, and my son Caden kicked it out. He kicked the long probe out. He kicked it out and said no. He said no. So I told my husband, I was like, they said I'm 21 weeks. I'm too far along. And the baby didn't want it anyway. He kicked the probe out. He was like, well, we prayed about it then, and he said, we'll deal with it the way that it is, what comes, and we'll just deal with it. But ironically, I went into remission, and we have a healthy, gifted, and talented 11-year-old that beats 12. Ironically, my baby boy and my baby girl birthday are 3 days apart. I don't know how we did that. Her angel birthday is November the 4th, and Caden's birthday is November the 7th. And my husband's birthday is October the 23rd.
There must have been something worth celebrating 9 months before then, right? That is a big leap of faith to take. That must have been a really interesting
It was hard.
time.
The last couple of months was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard because we didn't know what to expect. We were always on edge. Anxiety was at an all-time high.
Yeah.
But we made it through it.
Yeah. And obviously no adverse effects for anything that you were taking with your son, because he turned out so great. He's
smart as a whip. He's very intelligent.
When you found that out, and did they take you off any of your medications? Like, what did they change after they did figure out that you were pregnant?
I wasn't supposed to, like I said, I didn't know I was pregnant, so I was still taking my pain medicines. And so they took me off of my pain medicine, and then I was on a biologic at the time, Humira. And my doctor advised me that it was safe to take Humira while I was pregnant, but I didn't want to take it. So I moved from that, and we didn't do anything, just a course of steroids while I was pregnant, because most of the medicines I was taking, you couldn't take while pregnant.
We've talked to a number of other people that took their biologics throughout their pregnancy. And I know it's a big decision to continue, because I know it must feel really difficult to make the decision one way or another. Because like you said,
right.
Do you hope that you go into remission? Do you hope that you stay well enough that you can go through your pregnancy, or
right.
take this sort of risk? The nice thing is that, enough women have now gone through their pregnancies with especially Humira and Remicade, that it's proven to be really safe.
I have a lot of friends that took biologics while pregnant, and they've had very healthy pregnancies. Babies are healthy.
Yeah, we've had a number of moms on here that they've done that, and they've been part of like the piano study and things like that to really,
yes.
So it's been cool to hear, their participation and why they got involved. And all of them have these really like great children that have come out of their healthy pregnancies and them being healthy during their pregnancies. And that's kind of what some of the doctors have also said, is just the idea of like, if you can keep somebody well through their pregnancy, the outcome for you and the baby is better. So I think that's important. But it's also, I understand your decision to be like, yeah, not really something I'm interested in. I'm going to go off and make sure that I'm doing what I feel is right. Thank you for that. I know that was not an easy topic to talk about, so I appreciate that. I'm curious about your Facebook group, and since its inception and kind of moving on, what have been sort of the topics? Like, what are people talking about in these Facebook groups? What's the most popular sort of things that come up?
A lot of them want me to share my poetry.
Okay.
So a lot of people say that when they read my poetry, they feel a sense of relief, or the way that my word usage is and the way that I bond together my flow of poetry. You know, they always say that it helps them. And a lot of my friends are the reason, and my husband are the reason I started sharing my poetry, because it was a way that I could express myself. And it was a way that I felt as though I can freely say what I wanted to say with blend. And I always was fascinated about blending words together in a way that I can play on words and make words usable. So I just been sharing my poetry lately, and people been saying how they relate to it or how they felt when they read it. It basically been a lot about expressing and sharing feelings.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And I know you have a book that came out, a book of poetry that came out.
My ebook came out today.
Okay.
I actually self-published on Amazon on July 26th. My book is called Footprints of the Soul.
Fantastic.
Why I decided on the title, because I want my poetry to feel like it's footprints walking on your essence in your soul while you're navigating through life. And it's a poem in there for everybody. It talks about love. It talks about grief. It talks about motherhood and relationships and enjoyment and just overall enjoying the journey. Because to me, life is a journey, not a destination. If you're looking to get to your destination quick, then maybe this isn't the right road for you. Like, just enjoy the journey while you're on the journey, and eventually you'll reach whatever destinations you come across. But enjoy it, enjoy the wave, enjoy the ride. And that's what my poetry is about.
Well, you gave me chills like with the description of the title. I love that. I'm curious, were you always a writer? Like when you were younger, were you a writer? Like
I've been writing since as early as I can remember. My very first poem I ever wrote was for my favorite aunt Venerable when I was 6.
Oh.
They decided to put it in her obituary. When I told my family I published a book, they were like, "Oh my God, about time. It's so long overdue. You've been writing for forever."
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh. But you mentioned when we were talking to you about this before we hit record, you mentioned that there was a time where writing was not, where the words didn't come.
I had a writer's block for, I know, a good 7 years. I couldn't form a poem. I couldn't write a poem. I couldn't even write in my journal. And I love journal writing. Journal writing is important for my mental health. And I couldn't even write in my journal, let alone my name to finish, to sign anything. My journal entries was basically today was okay.
But you were writing.
And I had like 38 pages like that. Just today was okay. Nothing else would flow. Nothing would come out. Nothing felt right, if that makes sense. So like, I just felt off. Like I felt like a sense of myself was missing. The reason I felt off is because during that time I lost my mom. So I lost my mom in 2011. So my mom got diagnosed December 25th of 2010 with stomach cancer. And February 25th of 2011, she passed away. She went that quick.
Yeah.
So for me to adjust, it's like writing was everything, and that's how I express myself. But when I lost her, I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to write. I wasn't able to express myself. I didn't even grieve. I didn't cry. And I didn't do anything. I'm just coming to aspects of grieving for my mom.
Yeah. My dad lived with multiple sclerosis, but my dad died of pancreatic cancer. And it was the same thing where he was diagnosed in March and died in May. Like it was so fast that
so quick.
Like you said, it was like a bulldozer just came through and just cleared the path. And there was just sort of, like you said, your mind is sort of blank and you're like just going through the motions of trying to help that person as best as you can. And then when it's gone, you just sort of, everything becomes this void. It's a really weird feeling.
What made it so bad for me is because I look exactly like my mom. And then me and my mom had just repaired our relationship. So for her to go back fast was just like, it was antagonizing.
That's a good word. That's not surprising coming from a poet, but it's like you've been robbed of all of the possibility that was now opened up for you. That sucks. That's an inadequate word for that, but that just really sucks. And it's interesting to add the grief that's compounded in that too, because you have the grief that comes along with living with a chronic illness and aspects of living with a chronic illness and being diagnosed with a chronic illness. And then you sort of add this other complication in and all that grief gets sort of mixed up in a big bowl. Man,
let me tell you, I dealt with anger.
Yeah.
I know I experienced the anger phase at least 3 or 4 times. I kept revisiting anger over and over and over again. I came to the point that I was angry because of my chronic illness. I was angry because I could have been a better daughter and I wasn't. I was angry that I lost my mom and I felt as though she should have been here for important moments. She'll never get to know my baby boy, never have a relationship with him. Like, I always show my kids pictures, but my mom wasn't the one to take pictures, so only have 3. So it was a hard time for me, and I'm just starting to accept my grief and accept the fact that she's no longer here.
So that was the time when writing was complicated for you. Did you find that when you sort of got into the sort of angry phases that came back somewhat, or was it just that like angry words were also cut off?
My poetry were more not people friendly.
Fair.
And then it disappeared again, and I just couldn't. I couldn't find the right words to manifest what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I understand that. We're going deep. I don't want to keep it too deep because we're making Robin cry.
You're fine.
We're recording this in August. I know you're about to do a session about grief. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Me and my friend, I did a post about chronic illness and grief in the stages that you go through and the stages that we often revisit. I pre-planned my post, so I'll have stuff sitting in my notes and then I'll randomly go post it with a picture. But the picture I posted with it was a girl or person. They had flowers and they were watering their head and the flowers was growing. And in my mind, it popped. That's what's happened when you go through a grieving phase. You be drowning, then all of a sudden the flowers flourish, which is a form of acceptance. So I wanted to talk about it. And she inboxed me. She was like, this is a really good subject. We should talk about this. We should get together on live and, really delve into this. And then I started getting other inboxes. Like, I can't wait for this live session because this is a really interesting topic. Not too many people. A lot of people talk about grief and chronic illness or grief as a whole, but no one ever talks about the phases or revisiting each phase more than once, which can happen. When you grieve, you can revisit a lot of phases. You can revisit the depression phase, the anger phase, the self-loathing phase. You can revisit each phase, and it's okay to revisit those phases. It's okay to express your feelings and revisit those phases as many times as you need to. But at some point, it also, you also learn how to navigate through those phases when you have to revisit. And it's okay to express your feelings. It's okay to be angry and it's okay to be sad. Everybody has a bad day. It's not a bad life, but it might be a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. It's okay to have bad days. But you have to often remember that even though it's a bad day, it's not a bad life. Tomorrow's always a new day and you can always start over.
So, like, one of our very first episodes, probably episode 9 or 10 from June of 2022. So, this was one of our very early episodes. Mm-hmm. We had Nicole Williams on, and she talked about her grief wheel that she created because of what you're just talking about. It is not cyclical. It is not linear. You are going to revisit all of these phases, especially when it's a chronic illness, because we have these chronic illnesses for life and we're going to flare and we're going to be in remission and we're going to be angry all over again. And we're going to be, depressed all over again. And it is so true. I can't tell you how many times over the past 23 years I have revisited some of these grief phases. And also first of all, you are such a poet, but just the way that you saw that photo with the person with the flowers growing out of their head being watered, and you saw that as somebody drowning, and then with the flowers growing, that's exactly how it is. You go from drowning to like having hope and seeing promise, and then you're drowning again, and then there's hope and promise. I would have never looked at a picture like that and seen it that way, experienced that way. And now I will not be able to see it any other way. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it because that perfectly describes the experience.
Yeah, I think that is a really beautiful way of looking at it. And I think what I hope also people take away from your live and from this discussion is that like you said, you can have those bad days, you can have those bad moments. It doesn't mean it's a bad life. And that like, just because you have a stumble, or as they say, like in the UK, a wobble, it doesn't mean that you're not resilient, because you're this incredibly resilient community. Like, you deal with so so much. And that like uncertainty that sort of underpins everything, it makes it so that you are a very resilient person. But I think people can feel like they're not in that moment. So for the people that have inboxed you, what are they most excited about you talking about in this live? Have they told you like, we'd love for you to talk about this?
Revisiting phases seems to be the main topic. And, you know, I often tell people, they were like, what is one motto that you live by with your life? I said, my main motto is, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes of energy. Because what you giving energy to, it ain't going to matter 5 years from now. So why feed into it? You're wasting energy that can be used for something else. So that's how I live my life.
That's good advice. But then I also go, but what happens if you don't know? What happens if
you won't know? You won't know. But a lot of things that we tend to be upset about and we tend to give energy to is things that really don't matter. It's really not even important. It's just a bump in the road for that particular moment, but it's not going to be there always. I relate that to just everyday life. Like today, I'm very clumsy. I stumbled and fell on the steps. And I haven't stumbled and fell on the steps in a while. But I was so anxious that I allowed myself to lose balance because I wasn't technically paying attention to what I was doing. And I'm a very focused person. I try to pay attention to it. I pay attention a lot. So for me, just to get off balance and not pay attention, and I was like, I just gave energy to that and it didn't even require, because I started to get angry. And I was allowing that anger to take control of me. And it wasn't even going to matter 5 years from now, the fact that I fell down the steps and stuck to my toe. Like, it's just little simple things, not big important things, because some important things last, but little mediocre things that, you know, a lot of times people tend to give energy to the wrong things. And a lot of things that we give energy to doesn't even require the energy that we give it to. It could be easily just as something that you can just brush off and let go. I'm a person that say your whole attitude starts with you. If you allow yourself to be angry today, you're going to be angry. But if you talk positive affirmations to yourself, when your feet hit that floor, you're going to feel good and you're going to make today great on purpose.
Gosh, I needed to hear that. I think, wow, I'm going to take you in a slightly different direction. So for those folks out there that may have aspirations of being writers, but are maybe not natural writers like you, I am curious if you have any advice to people who, like, for instance, want to try to start journaling, because you're right, this can be an incredibly amazing way of sort of processing and getting out some of these like feelings and emotions so that you're not letting them sleep with you in bed at night. But like, I'm going to admit that I'm talking about myself. I'm a really terrible journal writer. Like, I want to do it, but like, I just sit there and stare at a blank piece of paper and go, This is
what I tell my friends. If all you can write today is one word, 2 words, a sentence, a quote, it's a journal entry. Eventually, all them quotes and words are going to add up and you're going to have a full page full. So if all you can write today is I'm okay, then I'm okay. That's enough. Eventually, it'll all add up into one journal entry, even if you got to go page by page. You can always go back and revisit that because you know today I'm okay, because that's what the journal entry said. I'm okay. Tomorrow, it might say I'm not okay. And then the next day, it might say, I'm okay. I had a great day today. This is what I did. You notice that you're adding more and more without noticing that you're adding more and more.
Are there prompts that can help with this?
Yes, there are prompts. There are many prompts and questions. Like, I love Pinterest, but you can go on Pinterest and just search journal prompts, and it'll give you a list of multiple prompts, which is what I use to write about for that day. And it actually helps when you have journal prompts. It helps get it out there. You're not always going to write a full page or a sentence. Some days are simply just 1-word days or 2-word days, because you do get those. But other days, you're going to go with the flow. What I try to do, I try to write for at least 5 minutes a day. And in those 5 minutes of the day, I write what I'm grateful for. Because no matter how bad a situation is, it's always something positive and something bad. There's always something to be grateful for.
I go through phases of just what you said, Alicia. And I find that keeping a gratitude journal, like you said, Myisha, that's the best thing for me. Like, that's the easiest way for me to write down more if I want to write more. But the truest thing to write usually I'm overthinking about, and I want to give everybody permission to just put whatever they want to put down on the page, because I will overthink and I will want to write the perfect thing. I will want to write the correct thing. I will want to write the right thing.
And it doesn't have to be perfect or right.
There is no right thing. And I think that's what stops a lot of people. I think that when people say, I don't know what to write, I'm not saying this is you, Alicia, but I think in a lot of instances, people think they want to write the perfect thing.
Yeah.
They're overthinking it. They want to write the right thing. They're thinking about, if somebody sees this, I want them to think that, this is something that's so profound, what I've written in my journal, or, I have to have the perfect prompt, and I have to have the next 30 days of all these, magnificent questions, that I'm just writing something that's so profound. But taking a page out of Myisha's book, and just, even if it's just, I'm okay, I'm not okay. That is the best way to start journaling, and really the way to get the most honest journal entries, and to really start building an honest journaling practice. Again, when I am the most honest, it's really when I'm doing the gratitude journaling, and I'm able to be more consistent. And I try to think of little things that I'm grateful for, not the big things, like just noticing something that makes me smile every day, something that I'm thankful for. Again, the small things, not like huge things, just tiny little things that I'm grateful for every day. That's when I'm the most consistent.
Yes, I feel you on those.
One time I turned my gratitude journaling practice into thank you cards. And so I actually wrote
That's
out.
Amazing. I like that.
I wrote a thank you card to somebody every day, and I had to actually mail it. I had to put a stamp on it and mail it every single day. And if it was sending it to somebody I didn't have their address for, I had to send them an email or send them a text message, but I had to write some kind of thank you message to somebody every day. And so that was a lot of fun. And so I've really been thinking about implementing that for this fall, ending my year.
I love that idea.
With doing, turning my journaling into writing thank you notes.
I love that.
So since we're still on writing, would you be willing to read one of your poems?
Oh, of course. I was waiting for you guys to ask.
Okay, good. This doesn't absolve people of going and buying your book, though. I'm going to make sure I point that out.
Yeah, this is true. These are facts.
I'm going to look for the shortest one. My poems tend to be long. This is called Fragments of the Heart, A Tale of Renewal. In shadows cast, a girl so fair, her heart now fractured, unaware. Once bloomed a love so sweet, so true, now tears her soul in shades of blue. With every breath, she feels the pain, a heartache's dance, a better refrain. Through lonely nights and endless days, she walks the path of love's array. And memories gap, she finds no peace as love's embrace begins to cease. A fragile heart now cracked and worn, in solitude her soul is torn. Yet a glimmer softly gleams amidst the sorrow's haunting streams. Though broken now, she'll rise anew and mend the fragments, love reborn in view. For in the depths of darkest night, the girl shall heal, her heart take flight. With time's embrace, wounds find their mend. A broken heart can learn to mend. In solitude, she seeks her strength to mend the pieces, go to any length. With each sunrise, a chance to heal, to find herself and learn to feel. Amidst the pain, a fire ignites. Resilience blooms like stars in nights. Through tears that fall like gentle rain, she starts to find her strength again. In every heartbeat's rhythmic drum, a melody of hope has just begun. The scars she bears, they tell a tale of bravery and love's fierce gale. Through laughter lost and smiles erased, her spirit lingers, not effaced. But in her depths, a courage lies to rise again, to touch the skies. The broken-hearted girl, she'll rise. Her dreams take flight like butterflies. With newfound love, she'll paint life's art, a masterpiece born from a shattered heart. And though the ache may still remain, time's tender touch will ease the strain. But in the journey of love sorrow, she'll find a brighter, hopeful tomorrow. In quiet whispers of the night, she weaves her dreams with threads of light. Through healing tears, she finds her grace, embracing scars that time can't erase. The lessons learned in love's cruel school have shaped her spirit, made her whole with newfound wisdom etched within. She'll guard her heart, love to begin. In solitude, she finds her power to love herself, to bloom and flower. No longer defined by love's demise, her worth intrinsic brightly skies. She'll soar above the clouds of pain, embracing life free from chain. For heartbreak's gas has made her strong, a phoenix rising, free and long. In time, she'll dance with love once more. With cautious steps, she'll mend and restore. The broken-hearted girl's heart will mend, and love's sweet sympathy she'll comprehend. For from the ashes of her past, a stronger soul is free at last. With open arms, she'll greet the dawn. A brand new chapter is now drawn. So let her journey be a song of hope and courage all along. But in her tale, we all can find the strength to heal and love unwind.
That was beautiful. I'm so excited to get your book and read some of this.
Thank you.
Okay, again, your book's name is Footprints of the Soul, yes?
Yes, available on Amazon. Just search my name or the title of the book. It shows right up.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be sure to link to it as well in the show notes. So if anybody's looking for it, they can find it down in the show notes as well. I am curious if we can talk a little bit about pain, if you don't mind, because this has come up. Actually, Robin's sister is a nurse who works with a lot of folks with pain, doing pain management. But, one of the things we talk about is it's really tricky to do pain management with folks with inflammatory bowel disease and bowel and
See, me, issues. I'm not a candidate for pain management.
Okay.
I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and most of the doctors here for pain management, they want to be able to physically see where your injuries are, whether that's back, knee, chest. I was never a candidate for pain management. They would always deny me, but my primary care doctor is also a pain management doctor.
Oh, good. Okay.
So she manages my pain pretty well. I take a breakthrough pain medicine and I take a go-to pain medicine. A lot of people doesn't know what that is. So my go-to pain medicine is normally a medication that is fast acting, which is oxycodone, which is my go-to pain medicine. My breakthrough pain medicine is morphine sulfate ER, which is extended release, which means I get a little bit of it over the course of 12 hours. The reason why I have a go-to in the breakthrough pain medicine is because my go-to pain medicine only helps for a short amount of time, where my longer acting pain medicine, it lasts for multiple hours, where I don't have to take as many or as much. One a day will do me fine, or two for a 24-hour period will do me just fine. Where if I have to take my oxycodone, I find myself having to take multiple, not at the same time. And no, I do not take these medicines at the same time. But I find myself having to take multiple because it works quick and then it do what it needs to do. And then I'm back feeling pain. And I have a high pain tolerance. So for me to actually have to take a pain pill, it has to be a 20, because 10 to me is like my normal.
I think pain in IBD is really not very well understood, because I think people kind of go, well,
it's just a stomach ache.
Yeah, exactly.
Just having a stomach ache is not that serious, but it is that serious.
Yeah. Stomach
pain from IBD is unlike any pain I've ever felt. And I've had gallbladder pain. I had my gallbladder taken out. I had a fallopian tube taken out because I was pregnant in my tubes and it ruptured. So I had to have a fallopian tube taken out. But it's hard. Like the Crohn's pain is worse than gallbladder pain. And gallbladder pain is I'm sorry for my language, but gallbladder pain is a motherfucker. You can edit this out if you like, but it is. And Crohn's disease pain, it feels like Crohn's disease pain touches you to the core of your soul, if that makes sense.
Because we're not believed about our pain. We're not believed so often. I try to tell people to describe their pain as specifically as possible. So like, is your pain sharp or burning or radiating?
Exactly.
Do you do that too?
Yes. Like for the past 2 days, my pain been burning, nauseating, sharp, achy, dull, and throbbing for the past 2 days.
Yeah.
And it's been constant.
Yeah. So for anyone who's listening who has no idea what we're talking about, or if you're like newly diagnosed or something, just think about that when you're going to see your doctor and they walk in the room and they're like, on a scale of 1 to 10, can you tell me what your pain is like? And you're like, that's not really a very good way to describe your pain in our situation. I think for us, specifically with IBD, I feel like it's much more important to be able to describe the type of pain you're having and then its intensity, because like some of the pain that I'm having, I found out is like nerve pain in my stomach from damage from the inflammation. And so that's a different kind of medicine that they would prescribe to address the nerve pain over just like the burning pain or the throbbing pain or the stabbing pain. I mean, there's so many different kinds of pain that you can experience. And I feel like they all mean different things. And so getting in touch with your pain also helps you to get in touch with the sensations in your GI tract so you can know, like, do you have an obstruction? Like, are things slowing down? Does it feel like something stopped up? Is this gas? Like, gas pain is a different kind of pain, and gas pain is horrendous.
It is.
But just thinking about that, it's so hard to describe. Just like Myisha said, this was a light bulb moment just a few minutes ago when you said that they want to see the injury. Like for us, you can't see the injury. There's not an injury. Oh, that's so frustrating.
And I told the doctor, I was like, what did you want to see? Like, do you want to see my insides falling out? I was like, I'm in pain. Like, do you want to see the x-rays, the MRIs, the CAT scans? Like, what do you want to see? I can show you, but you're not going to see it. It's inside my body. And they always say, you're just so unruly. I'm not unruly when I'm advocating for myself. I'm not uncomprehendable when I'm advocating for myself. If you're not going to listen, I'm going to make you listen. I'm going to speak up for myself. I'm going to tell you how I'm feeling. How you take it, that's on you. But I'm going to tell you exactly how I'm feeling so you can better understand how your patient is feeling.
I'm going to repeat that. How they take it is on them, not on you as the patient. And no, when you're in pain, you're not going to be like, good day, fine, sir. I happen to be not feeling well today. Could you please help me? No, screw that. Way off. No, you're going to be agitated and frustrated and speaking.
Angry.
Yes. And speaking loudly and trying to get attention and trying to get someone to manage your pain.
Let me tell you, you know how refreshing it was when I found a doctor to tell me they believed me? The amount of tears that I cried because I finally, it took me 5 years to find a doctor to believe me. Well, to find a doctor that believed my pain was valid, meant everything to me. It is so hard to find a doctor to believe you. When that doctor told me they believed me, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I'm just crying.
No, it's understandable.
We do it a lot. I cry a lot on this show.
It was just like a weight was lifted off my shoulder because finally someone heard me. Finally, someone heard me.
That's really overwhelming, I think. And it's like all of a sudden you feel like you're transferring some of that load to somebody else and you're not having to carry that by yourself.
Yes.
It's so powerful. But you're right. Like to fight for that long and to be told that you're being unruly is incredibly demoralizing and fucking angering too. Like just, you shouldn't not be believed.
But you have a lot of doctors that do that. You have a lot of doctors that rush through visits, and a lot of doctors are in it for the money, not the patient. And see, before I went out on disability, because I get SSI now, I was a registered nurse. I keep my license active. I have in my brain, one day I'm gonna get better. One day they'll find a cure, but I keep my license active. And when I was nursing, I was working for a doctor, primary care doctor, that rushed through visits. And I would always tell him, how could you adequately treat a patient when you're rushing through the visits? You're not even properly hearing what the patient is saying. How can you possibly call yourself a doctor and you're not listening to your patient. That's one of the main factors, is listening to your patient, understanding your patient, building a relationship with your patient. You can't do that when you're rushing them out the door. It should be no way I come in here and my appointment with you, my window is 45 minutes. I should not be out the door in 10 minutes. You're not adequately listening. You're not adequately hearing. You're not adequately seeing. You're rushing. I don't feel seen and heard that way.
As you're talking to folks, because I'm sure this comes up in your advocacy work as well, and as you're talking to people in your Facebook group that are struggling through something similar, what type of advice do you give to folks? Because I do think, this happens all the time, unfortunately.
I tell them, call me.
Okay.
I tell them, call me, put me on FaceTime if you need to. If you can't advocate for yourself, call me and I'll advocate for you. And I always tell them I'm a phone call away. Sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you can't do it by yourself. Sometimes you need some help. That's what I'm there for. Call me anytime. I'll gladly help you.
What about those folks that they want to learn how to do this themselves?
Then I give them ways and methods to do it themselves. I got a little list that I keep wrote for people that ask how to do certain things. And I just attach it and send it. Say, thanks for asking. Thanks for reaching out to me, wanting to learn certain things. This is a list that I compose for myself. Hopefully you'll find some use for it.
What's on your list?
Asking questions. No question is dumb. I'm a pre-planner, so I always, if I know my appointment is tomorrow, I'll sit down and write out all those questions over the course of 7 days that I really want to ask, that I really want answers to. Don't put too many, but your top 5, put the top 5 and make sure don't leave without getting those questions answered. When your doctor puts you on a new medicine, ask what is the side effects of this medication? How would this medication interfere with other medications that I'm taking? What is the long-term effects? How would this medicine benefit me 60 to 90 days from now, 6 months from now? Why is this test requested? Why are you doing certain blood work? Why are you requesting certain panels? Why are you requesting certain things? You want to know why a doctor is doing certain things so that you can better comprehend what's going on with your body, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally. And it's also good to have a therapist or someone that you could talk to, because not saying that your family don't understand, but having an outside person that doesn't know you, understand, and listen to you, they tend to be non-biased. So they listen to better understand versus listening just to listen.
Yeah, I definitely think that sometimes having that third party who's more objective, who doesn't have as much of the emotions skin in the game, is really can be really helpful. The other thing that I found really helpful, and this came up in one of our other episodes too, is that, right now I was trying to figure out a new migraine medicine. My old one isn't working, right? So I started exploring my options, met with the doctor. I met with my doctor, and then I met with a neurologist too, just because, they wanted to make sure I had the right sort of advice. But then afterwards it's like, well, you can take all these different medicines. And I sort of was like, okay. So I went home and did a bunch of research and was like, okay, I think this is probably the one I'm thinking about. But then what was nice is that I ended up at my pharmacy about picking up a different medication. And while I was there, I ended up getting a chance to talk to the pharmacist about these different medications and some of my concerns, because I was reading some really concerning side effects from this stuff. Right. And so I was able to say, hey, I was considering this one, but I read this thing about your hair falling out and this stuff happening, why is your hair falling out? It was helpful because I had somebody else I could talk to. And frankly, did he have other things to do? I'm sure, but he wasn't like a general practitioner or a doctor who has his next patient, in 15 minutes and has to immediately walk away and build. So keep in mind that there could be some other healthcare professionals that can also help you make these decisions.
I totally understand what you're saying. I was in a clinical trial for my Crohn's disease recently, and I had to get out the clinical trial because apparently you can't have recurrent flares, and I kept having recurrent flares. And the medication that I was doing the clinical trial for was Tremfya. It's already on the market, but they're trying it out for Crohn's. It's every 4-week injection, 2 injections, 400 milligrams, and I was actually getting the drug. I wasn't getting a placebo. I was actually getting the drug, but I kept having flare-ups, recurrent flare-ups. So I had to leave the clinical trial. I was in it since January 26th, and my last day was June 26th. So I'll be going on a new medication, and that's how I was feeling.
I guess it makes sense because obviously you're not getting any sort of clinical reaction to it. So I guess it makes sense that they would take you off of it, but it also is a little bit but now
I have to go on a new medication, and my options is limited. I only have Symphony and Stelara left. Those are the only two I had left because I didn't exhausted everything else. And most of the biologics and even the biosimilars are pretty much the same medication. So it's like I went from Cimzia to Tremfya, and Cimzia put me into remission for 3 years. And then my symptoms came back. My insurance, the step therapy, mind you, they were paying for my medicine for 3 years. Then one day they just said they wasn't paying for it anymore.
That's incredibly frustrating.
That's how I ended up in a clinical trial.
Yeah. But you're right. Like if you end up in a biosimilar to Remicade or Humira, it's the same basically as Remicade and Humira.
Exactly.
So if you're not responding to Humira, you're probably not going to respond to the biosimilar of it. So it does, but you're right. Insurance companies are probably going to be weird about it just because they're annoying.
Myisha, I could ask you a ton more questions, but I have to ask you our last question. So what is the one piece of advice that you want to leave our IBD community with?
You're going to have a lot of times where you feel alone, but the togetherness in the IBD community is unmatched beyond others. It is so supportive. And if you ever need to reach out to me, my inbox is always open. You can follow me on Instagram, Game of Crohn's and Chronic Illness. So always I'm an inbox away.
I do agree with that. The IBD community is unmatched. The togetherness in this community is unmatched. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing so openly and vulnerably with us. I mean, we got to dive into topics we haven't had a chance to dive into yet. I can't wait to share this episode with everyone. Myisha, it has been lovely getting to meet you. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Always. I was so excited to meet you guys.
Myisha, such a joy. It really was such a joy. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone else for joining us, and cheers, guys.
Cheers, everybody.
Hi, this is Myisha. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and share it with your friends and save it so you can listen to next week.